Board of Commissioners regular meeting today, Tuesday, June 11th, and if we'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we get started, a couple of commissioners have indicated they're unable to attend today, but we do have a quorum. So as we begin, are there any adjustments or changes to today's agenda? Any adjustments or changes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this point, we have our public comment period, an opportunity for citizens to appear before the county board. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak this morning? And thank you for signing in, stating your name and address for the public. Good morning, Arvis.
Good morning. Arvis Thompson, District 4, Colville. At the last county board meeting on May 28th, there was recognition that a better way to report on meetings is to have the staff attend the county meeting and share directly with you, the commissioners, thus eliminating an interpretation by the commissioner who was in attendance at that meeting. And that gives the board a chance to ask questions. And that was when Rowan came in and made the report directly to you. That was a really good step. It's a step in the right direction for better communication among the board and providing the public with accurate, up-to-date information as well. Your decision to use the committee of the whole for current topics that you need to talk about in depth, being reviewed by the 5 of you at one time, is another good step. But please allow yourself to be honest with your feelings, your doubts, your intuitions. Working together does not mean you have to be 100% on the same note. Looking at how you communicate is as important, perhaps even more important, than the business you are talking about. Examples of that. The sheriff had written information in the board packet, and he verbally corrected it. Board members had questions. An attempt to table was voted down because this item was so important it needed to be acted on now. The information was incomplete with unanswered questions, yet a vote had to be taken. Time to think and process was voted down. It was not a crisis decision. The $200 grant for pincushion. I listened several times on how the finances were to be handled. The information did not make sense to me. I wondered if everyone at the table understood or just let it go, knowing that Brady is on top of these things. I asked Brady how this works, and he gave me a rundown. In a few sentences, he made sense. Who listens and thinks about the message that is given by staff and the accuracy of what is presented by our well-paid professionals? You accepted a verbal correction with paperwork to follow. Did you get the paperwork? Our apple orchard, an ongoing lesson in poor communication. Someone makes a decision to hand it over to an outside entity based on what? My first thought, it stands in the way of the judicial center. and anything and everything that can be done to eliminate this element from the picture will be done. Someone asked why I would think this way. Simply, I don't trust the whole CIP deferred maintenance plan. The first CRBPS plan had 3 options. The only one you focused on was number 3, which was the judicial center. Did the county board know what was being orchestrated? Did you have a conversation to discover the history or the mission or know the original purpose or organizers? It appeared not. Now there is a scramble to appear to care, to not eliminate the feel-good educational community benefits that the orchard was intended for, I believe. But it's county land, I heard. Yeah, and so what? That means it belongs to all of us. Isn't the county's word worth anything when they agreed to the use of the land? It feels like, no, it's not if it stands in the way of some greater plan. And no, it's not if the force behind the decision thinks the people can be overlooked. It's just a bunch of trees. Who is going to complain? We'll cut them down or we'll move them. Since when is stepping on your communities and your people a good idea? On a different note, I walked down into the lower level of the courthouse and was disappointed, let alone embarrassed, to see how the west exit has deteriorated. There aren't many places that the public can look at the courthouse and see what's going on, but that is a terrible place. It's green, it's growing, it's crumbling, and it's dirty, it's filthy. A shameful statement about priorities. Where are they? Is this how you care for our courthouse and all of the other assets that you are entrusted with? If you can't take care of what you have, why would we give you any more?
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak this morning? Have any commissioners received information that should be shared? All right, we will move on to our consent agenda. Are there any items a commissioner wishes to pull? Commissioner White.
Oh, I'm sorry. I answered my own question by rereading something.
All right.
Never mind. I don't have a question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just for the board and for members of the public, the minutes have had a correction for our May 28th meeting. That's the reason that the item was updated yesterday. And we also added to that our June 27th Appeals and Equalization meeting. So, if there are no items to pull, is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Is there support? Thank you, Commissioner Starley. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 4, Attorney Hicken.
Thank you, Chair Solomon. Let me just get the right agenda in order of the things that I have on there. What was the first agenda item?
First item is approving for publishing the RFP for the Snowmobile Bridge.
Okay, thank you. I was just working on a letter to the board that I will file into the board packet because I have a couple corrections to this request for bid. First of all, I'm asking you to approve it in the form that's attached to the bid with 2 corrections. The first is that the bid opening date should be July 2nd. That's to allow for the statutory period for competitive bidding that's required in this project. And the second correction is that I will be removing the performance and payment bond requirement That is a requirement for construction projects that are public works. However, there's an exception, which I found in statute, for maintenance and improvement to state recreational trails. And since this is a state in aid snowmobile trail, which is designed for that, for one purpose, and that's snowmobiling, I have confirmation from our trails representative, Dan Gollner, that we do not need performance and payment bonds. So that's going to reduce the price of the project, which is good. The board has already seen the grant agreement, which will lead to funding for this project. And that's all I have to say about that. I'm here for questions.
All right. Any questions for Attorney Hicken? If not, is there a motion to approve the request for proposals for the Poplar River Snowmobile Trail Bridge at the Lutsen Access Trail?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Is there support? I'll support. Any further discussion? Commissioner White?
Little slow. If we don't have, if this is inaccurate, we don't have the corrections in writing yet? Should that be in place before we approve this?
They don't need to be, so long as you, when you make your motion, you indicate that you'd like to include the corrections that I put on the record. And you can state them directly in your motion if you'd like, with the July 1 opening date, or July 2 bid opening date, and without the requirement for performance or payment bonds.
So this would be to...
And then the written RFP will go to Brady. Brady has already drafted what needs to be published in the newspaper, and then we upload the RFP in totality to the website, and people are referred to go to the website.
Okay.
So what Brady will be submitting to the newspaper is the corrected version or the changed version?
In the notice, it just says July 2nd
Okay.
for the
Yep.
bid opening. And then it refers to the whole RFP, which will be on the website or we'll have in our
Oh.
office. And then that'll have the no
Okay.
performance or payment bonds. So
Yes.
So, Commissioner, I think I would feel better if we redid the motion with it verbalizing, restating the July 2nd and the elimination of the performance bond.
So Commissioner Storley, do you want to amend?
I will amend that to
All
the
right.
date, yes.
All right, amend that to the date of July 2nd and
Yeah.
remove the bond. And I would support with that. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I know that there will be lots of people very pleased about this moving forward.
Yes.
Very important trail.
Yep, it was a loss from the 2022 flooding.
Mhm.
Okay, my second item for the board, this is a memorandum of agreement in draft form, requesting that the board approve this memorandum of agreement in substantially the same format that I've attached here. It hasn't yet been reviewed by a few different stakeholders that need to review it. But I wanted the board to see it because it relates to the next two items. So the Hockey Association should see this, and certainly the Cook County Community Center Board should see this. And SCA also needs a chance to review it. But the point of this agreement is to put the responsibility for installing and breaking down and storing the bike skills park components to Superior Cycling Association, which is consistent with the commitment that they made to this board back when they first presented this idea. Let's see, and I know that there was a question about what do we do if SCA does not hold up their responsibilities? Then That is why we include paragraph 9 default, which talks about how the process for if either party is in violation of the agreed terms. You give notice, you give them an opportunity to correct it. And ultimately, if the violation is not corrected and if it's going to make a serious impact on the finances or liability of the county, then we pursue enforcement of the agreement in a court venue. Whenever we are contracting with nonprofits, we're contracting with the understanding that they typically don't have deep pockets, but their resource is in the people and the volunteers and the experience and expertise that they bring to the table. SCA, I think, has been a successful nonprofit since maybe 2007, 2008. And the county has successfully partnered with them in several projects. The biggest, which I can remember, is the Connector mountain bike trail, which is nearly 15 miles of wilderness traverse trail between Tofte and Lutsen, which is well known around the state, and it's a real draw for bikers here.
All right, well, thank you for responding to that. Commissioner
And
White.
SCA means Superior Cycling Association.
Yes, apologies. That's what that acronym means.
Any other questions for Attorney Hicken?
And I'll just restate, the motion that I'm looking for is that the board approve for signature in substantially the same format this agreement with any changes approved by the county attorney. If there are any changes that are substantive, big changes for the board, I'm going to bring this back in front of you to see. Okay.
So what we're looking at is a motion to approve the, for signature in the substantial format, the attached memorandum of agreement between Cook County and the Superior Cycling Association.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I will make the motion.
Thank
to
you,
approve.
Commissioner White. Is there support? Thank you, Commissioner Starley. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion?
I have a
Commissioner
question, Attorney Hickens. What would be minor changes that might be anticipated?
So one of the issues that Superior Cycling Association brought up with this draft is they're reading the language to say, so there's language in this agreement that says if there's any damage to the hockey arena, the surface, or the boards, which is as a result of the bike skills park being in there, then SCA is responsible for repairing that damage. And the president brought up the issue that, well, does that mean if a kid comes in and does graffiti in the hockey arena over the summer when our bike skills park is in there, that it's our responsibility to fix it? So I can amend the language. That's not the intent. Graffiti is not something that's typically under the control of either SCA or the county. So I might tweak the language to just make that clear. It's something that's not directly related to the bike skills park being in there, need not be their responsibility to fix. Or I could give an example and say, for example, if there are divots in the ground that need to be repaired because of the bike skills park, SCA will do that. Yeah, that's a minor change.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other
I
questions?
think we actually have time to bring this agreement back in front of the board. But I know that sometimes when you make decisions to spend a lot of money, like a couple quotes in front of this, you are wanting to know how that equipment is going to be cared for and who's going to be responsible for it. So if the board is more comfortable with just delaying this item a couple weeks, I can bring it back.
Okay. What would be the wishes of the board? We do have a motion and a A second on the table.
If indeed the minor changes would be graffiti or something along those lines and not a change in the insurance requirements, then I don't see, and they'll take care of divots and they're going to take it all, put it in, and that's perfectly acceptable to me.
I'm comfortable with that. Commissioner Storley?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Anything further? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to approving the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program Participation Agreement.
Thank you. This item is also related to the Bike Skills Park. However, it has a broader effect also. So Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program is a nationwide, I just have to get the language out of the statute here. A purchasing alliance or cooperative created by a joint powers agreement that purchases items from more than one source on the basis of competitive bids or competitive quotations. So entities like Sourcewell are here, they exist to make it easier for local governments to meet the competitive bidding requirements that are in statute. These entities will put out a bid, for example, for bike skills parks, pump tracks, and skate park equipment. They collect all of the bids. They find the one that is the most competitive and cost efficient for local governments. And because they went through that process, we don't have to. They have to meet certain requirements of the statute to qualify under that language that I quoted. And so long as they do, and so long as we enter into a joint powers agreement with them, we can then use Sourcewell's vendors, who have already been through that competitive process, to purchase things from, without going through the really resource-intensive process of publishing and soliciting bids and collecting bids and deciding which is the best. So we're contracting with Sourcewell so that we can then accept the quote that is the next item without violating competitive bidding requirements. And this will allow us also in the future to take advantage of other vendors who are signed up and went through the bidding process with Sourcewell. We have previously used a Sourcewell vendor, although that one was not, it didn't rise to the dollar amount that required competitive bidding anyway, so we didn't have to enter into the agreement at that point. But yeah, that's my summary. I hope that makes sense.
All right.
For
Commissioner
the,
White.
for the public, is there a cost for us to enter into this agreement, like an annual fee or anything like that?
There is no cost.
Well, I think in thinking about this purchasing program, it offers great opportunity for us to save money and time, which is money. And I'm really pleased that we have this chance. I think it's really good.
Yeah, we've used, the state has a cooperative purchasing for some things. We've used that for decades. The sheriff used to buy cars
Yeah.
off of the state co-op. So
Yeah. No,
This is
it's a
similar.
great program. With that, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the participation in the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program.
Thank you, Commissioner White. I'll provide support. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. And finally, the fourth and final item I'm bringing in front of you is the quote for the Bike Skills Park and Pump Track equipment. This is a quote for $204,450.89, which is fully funded by a legacy grant awarded to the county with cooperation of Superior Cycling Association. This amount constitutes the retail amount with a 7% discount for Sourcewell entities. So now that we have entered into the agreement, or once we submit our signed agreement to Sourcewell, we can take advantage of that 7% discount. There's no further contract with Progressive Bike Ramps, also known as American Ramp Company. Us accepting the quote becomes our contract.
I like the 7% discount.
Yes.
Any other questions for Attorney Hicken?
Which, for those who are just listening, 7% is $15,000 in this case.
Madam Chair. I kind of forgot about this. We've been discussing it and we've had it in the past. It's like, oh, the other day when I was over there, I wonder if they've put this in. Well, we aren't even there yet.
Yeah.
So it's good that you're able to move this along. Will it happen this year, do you think?
Fingers crossed, it will still happen in August.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Good. Kids can use it then.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you much. All right, we'll move on to Auditor Powers.
And this is also related to what you've been hearing. This was the bid for the High Climber Trail Rehabilitation work. So we received one bid, as we have on, this is the third bike trail project. You've heard in recent times there's phase 1 and phase 2 at Pincushion. And then this for the 5 miles of the High Climber Trail. And as you can read in the RFP, so this is for the single track in the Lutsen area. It's part of that 15 miles. Superior Cycling Association sponsored this bid, created the RFP. And again, as with the phase 2, they decided that nationally, the way everybody was going on bike trails is to solicit a bid of the daily rate, which they did for their bid here rather than a single number, because the experience is that they get better work when they bid the daily rate. We just have to make sure that it fits within our finances, which I'll talk about in a minute. So as the only bidder, this is your only option here. We'll have to have a contract, of course, between County and Superior Cycling Association and the final grant approval. You've seen that grant. We approved the form of it. We're just waiting for the final. It's $400,000 grant from Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails, which they've already awarded. We just have to get the contract. If you look at the daily rate and their estimated time, it's about $143,000. There'll be some materials. SCA will buy the bridge work and all that kind of stuff. So this will just be a labor contract. And then the other part that comes out of this is that bike park. So $204,000 for the bike park. The labor on this, $143,000, so you're $347,000. So there's $53,000 in there for additional cost, bridge work, et cetera. Materials usually are significantly less than that. So it appears we have significant cushion with this. So I just wait for questions.
Any questions for Auditor Powers? If not, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the bid by Dirt Candy Designs LLC to complete the rehabilitation of the High Climber Mountain Bike Trail in Lutsen.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll go on to item B, which is our EDA budget request.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll just introduce this. I see Teresa is here to answer any questions you might have. They were very diligent in getting their budget way ahead of requested time, so I think they've worked out all their kinks, and they're asking for $519,880 is their bid, which is just a little less than 6% higher than last year, which was $497.20. And I'll let you ask questions of Teresa. She can answer.
Teresa, would you like to come forward to the microphone? Thank you so much. So we appreciate the very thorough budget, really appreciate all the line items that we can look at, and that will help for the commissioners to think of questions they might have. So I guess I'll open it up to commissioners first. Does anyone have any direct questions for Teresa? Commissioner White.
What is the per diem for board members?
Great question, Commissioner. $30 a meeting. So I budget for the 12 regular meetings and then one special meeting just to.
All right. Question I had is regarding the financial obligations for Cedar Grove, those special assessments.
Madam Chair, great question. My understanding is that when the business park was created to put the infrastructure in, the EDA worked with the city of Grand Marais to issue general obligation bonds. The assumption at that time was that lots were going to sell for right around $60,000, and that was going to pay back the bond obligation over time. Things change, economic downturn, and lots have not historically gone for that much. So the EDA continues to do lot sales to pay down the special assessment balance on each lot, right around $9,000 right now. And then we've historically been asking for, as part of our levy, we pass on $60,000 a year, give or take, depending on tax collection, to the city of Grand Marais to pay back that bond obligation. My understanding from the debt schedule is that it will be done in 2031, but wanted to let commissioners know that myself, Auditor Powers, and the city of Grand Marais, including Mayor Benson, will be meeting to kind of understand a little bit more what the balance is, what's in reserve, and kind of the true timeline of paying this back with the sales that have happened recently. We currently have only 2 lots. We're closing on a few this month, and then there'll just be 2 left at the business park.
All right. Thank you so much. Other questions or comments? Commissioner White.
What are the lots going for these days?
Average lot sale historically has been right around $25,000. Recently, anywhere from $12,000 to $25,000. A lot of the ones that have gone for a little bit less are smaller and have pretty significant wetlands, so it reduces the buildable area and has a lot of costs on the front end to mitigate any wetland impacts. Or if there's been a couple instances where a lot owner purchased for, say, $45,000 and then wants to expand on an available lot adjacent to, and the board has been amenable to discounting a little bit there to support growth of their business.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Thank you for this good report. Couple questions on the advertising and marketing. I can understand a website, but advertising and marketing, that's gone up double. Where do you advertise and market, and what do you do in that area?
Great question, Commissioner. The advertising and marketing, I actually brought down $2,000 from last year. So it was $4,000 in the 2025 budget. It's $2,000. That reduction is we are currently working on redoing our website, and so there'll be less need for regular maintenance. The other items in there are notice of public hearing estimates, so when we have to post public hearings in the Herald. So I budgeted for that. And then our Cedar Grove Business Park and some of our other like digital maps and such, we have a graphic designer that holds those files and updates here and there. So the reduction reflects less less maintenance altogether, and then just a placeholder for those public hearing notices in the Herald.
And other professional services, the accounting, what does Serena do?
Serena is paid $300 a month to do bookkeeping for the EDA, and then I budget, so $300 a month, and then $400 when we get around audit time, because there's just a lot more time collecting some of that for Redpath, who does our yearly audit.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Auditor Powers.
Can you explain the SBDC consultant?
Absolutely, great
Addition?
question. So Pat Campanero is our current SBDC consultant. She has let us know that she wishes to retire at the end of the year. Pat is an independent contractor, and so her rate is $60 an hour. The EDA has a partnership with Northland Foundation where they provide, it's been roughly $49,000 a year to help offset that cost. So Pat invoices us for her time so she can provide no-cost business consulting to Cook County residents or business owners, entrepreneurs, and then Northland reimburses us up to that amount. At $60 an hour, I kind of did the math there, that's roughly 17 hours a week. So there's kind of two options as I've met with Northland Foundation to understand what replacement could look like. They could easily kind of set us up with one of their employees that works out of their Duluth office, but then we would kind of lose that in-person consultant in Cook County, and it would mostly be virtual. So the hope with this, with $20,000 of this, would be to increase our annual budget for an independent consultant to come and hopefully entice someone locally to apply, or maybe relocate. Worst case scenario, we would use one of their Duluth-based consultants, and we could use some of this request to ask that they come for, set office hours 1 or 2 days a week, and we could help with some of the travel and overnight accommodations so that we could have someone in person in Cook County doing the good work. So that was $20,000, $3,000 the EDA board approved. Pat had asked for a travel and training budget.
Mm-hmm.
There's an annual SBDC conference, and as an independent consultant, Northland Foundation doesn't provide funding for that, and so the hope was that the EDA could support some of the travel and costs of the conference for that.
I mean, it certainly seems if we're going to be looking at a new person, that training is really important.
The connection.
Yeah.
And
Commissioner White.
SBCA, yes. What is the acronym?
Small Business
Business.
Development Center.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner White?
$10,000 to Freiberger Buchanan. What type of legal?
Great question, Commissioner. That's just a placeholder for legal services. So, we don't have the luxury of having an in-person attorney. And so all of our development agreements, legal documents, just general questions about our course of business, we have an agreement with Freiberger that they're on retainer to provide legal services to us. I did a bit of an increase from last year. We haven't used our full budget from last year, so it might not be that high, but we've been working on some, taking a hard look at the golf course, and my prediction is that we might have to ask for a little bit, some additional legal services to kind of understand some of those covenants, the land, property, with the Nelson family and such. And so I'm just forecasting that we might have additional services in '25.
Thank you. Other questions? Well, it's been really nice to see, again, such a thorough budget and all the different line items. We appreciate that. It helps us to wrap our head around the work that the EDA is doing, particularly on a day when Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Mills, who sit on the EDA, are not here. Commissioner
And
White.
for those listening, the budget that we are looking at, and that is also on the, in the agenda, has breakdowns for the operating, professional services, office expenses, staff expenses, financial obligations, and business, and it has it all together. But it's laid out, it's just not one line, one number, and that is makes it more understandable. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, Administrator York.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item on the agenda concerns a grant application that the EDA and county are hoping to submit to the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development for $1 million, which would go to do some planning, strategic planning for the Taconite Harbor Energy Center. That's in the amount of $200,000. And then the other $800,000 would be to support the construction of the new solid waste transfer station east of Grand Marais. That is the project that was recently awarded $2 million bonding by the state. And so that would further support the development of that project and help construction get underway. Again, this is something that Teresa's been working on, so if there are questions, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer them.
Teresa, any comments you'd like to share or remarks about the transfer station?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, no, that was a great overview. You know, this Energy Transition Office was created under the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, or DEED, they call it. They have this grant opportunity. It's very unique in that it doesn't require matching funds. That certainly helps to be more competitive, and we are coming in with some match because of the IRRB grant for the transfer station that the EDA secured, and then this tax allocation that recently came through. And then there is an outstanding request for congressionally directed spending, but you know, depending on where that lands, we know that there'll be a gap. You know, this funding really aims to assist communities to address economic development, recovery, and response to a closure, and then diversification in general. So the $200,000 I think would go a long way for us to hire a professional consultant to help lead some of that strategic planning. You know, everything from taking a look at utilities, land use, environmental issues, wetlands, and then, you know, coordinating with key stakeholders and doing some level of community engagement to really understand what's realistic at this site, and then, you know, how to attract that. And then the waste transfer station, I think, can't, you know, be stated enough that economic development is pretty reliant on it. Every industry, every resident relies on reliable waste transfer, and being that we are over our permitted capacity, solving this now so we can be good stewards for our community now and into the future for any growth, especially not just population, but tourism that seems to be on an uptick, as well as development.
All right, thank you.
And I will be going to Schroeder Township today. At 6:30, we'll hold a public meeting. Just if anyone wants to hear about the application, then at 7, they'll also consider a resolution of approval. And after that, this is kind of the last piece. So once I get signed copies and approval, I will submit. Sounds like it's a pretty fast turnaround. So hopefully we would know end of July, early August of any award.
That's great. It's a fast turnaround. We like that. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Storley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Taconite Harbor has been on all of our lists for the last 15 years to what to do, more recently when it was decommissioned. And I guess I'm kind of surprised that it's great that the deed money is coming in, but what kind of skin does Minnesota Power have in this, financially or otherwise?
Great question, Commissioner. Minnesota Power has signaled that they definitely are taking lead on you know, kind of decommissioning of the equipment. They've already started. They removed the coal pile, added some vegetation. They've been doing some environmental assessment on, you know, soil conditions. They also awarded a bid to start taking down the building in 2025. I did work with them on this application. They've been a great partner in providing, you know, necessary, some of the historical information on employment data, tax information, and their previous studies on the site. It's been clear to me from their meetings that they are unable to convey this property at no cost to a community that would result in a rate increase for their users. But they are, they did submit a letter of support for this and are committed to be a partner and sort of with Cleveland Cliffs in facilitating this plan to see, you know, what might be possible on the site and how they can support that. As is Commissioner Rukavina and the ARDC did submit, I met with them and they submitted letters of support and are excited to be partners on this project as well.
I think Cleveland Cliffs will be the stickler in all this. Been working with them, and they don't seem to respond. So at some point, they need to step up and understand, the railroad was important at one time, and now it's not useful anymore. When we had public meetings about what to do with the property, we had everything from cruise ships stopping at the wonderful dock that they have there to railroad tours going into the range in the fall when the colors are great to, on and on and on it goes, So I think with some public input like the township and with Minnesota Power and myself on that committee, hopefully we can all come up with a really good usefulness of that land, because it's really a gorgeous piece of land and a public entity that could be many, many different things, and then move on to into the future beyond the purpose that it had. So thank you for your work in it too.
Other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to authorize the administrator to submit a deed community energy transition grant program application with the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development.
Also move.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Stoyler. We have a motion and support. Any additional questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Teresa.
Thank you.
All right, item 6B is a first look at FY 2025 request for additional resources. Several meetings ago, I promised the board that I would bring forward a summary of known requests for additional resources. The attached list is not intended to be comprehensive. We have not gotten preliminary budget requests from all departments yet. And so, and with the absence of a couple of commissioners today, I really think it would be better if we did have the full board here. I'm happy to go through this today, but I think probably we should also plan to put it on the next agenda, hopefully with all 5 commissioners present, so that we can have a full discussion about it. In any case, very briefly, what I wanted to do is just go through this. A couple of main points about the list. Again, it is not all-inclusive. There are likely some additional things that will end up on it. And these are requests. These are not things that will absolutely appear in the budget. The reason that you're seeing this today is because I wanted the board to have an opportunity to think about these, to provide some feedback on what the board would like to see in the budget proposal. Some of the things that are in here are related to the strategic plan. The strategic plan that the board approved a few meetings ago does include a number of things that fall on the Human Resources Department, which, as you know, is overtaxed currently. The last 2 directors who have left that position have indicated that burnout was a factor in their deciding to move to a different position. And so we want to make sure that with the implementation of the strategic plan, we don't worsen the situation for our current 1.5 FTE HR department. And so the addition of an HR generalist would enable us to fully implement the strategic plan without, again, placing undue burdens on existing staff. The second thing on the list is a proposed additional maintenance person. We have not added a maintenance staff member for many years, and yet the workload of that department has continued to grow. There are 2 things you can do. You can either scale back the workload, or you can add staff. And I'm open to either approach. I think if you are going to scale back the workload, I don't think we're in a position right now with the implementation of the capital improvement plan that would be a good thing to do. It could be done, But, currently, we don't really have the resources that the maintenance department needs to do all the work that it's expected to do. So that's another potential additional request. Some of these other ones are things that you've heard about already. Sarah Waddle has talked about the request to add another day to the schedule of the community center assistant. Currently, that position works 3 days a week, and the addition of another .2 FTE would make it a 4-day-a-week position. Likewise, the board has already voted on its intention to fund the additional .2 FTE for the probation program administrative assistant. And so that's something that is kind of a done deal because the board already acted on it. We're expecting an extension contract price increase. The memorandum of understanding that we have with the extension program is a 3-year MOU, and we have heard that they intend to increase the price of that because costs have gone up since the last 3-year agreement was executed. And we will have Carrie Cavadin from Extension at next week's Committee of the Whole meeting to talk about that. The YMCA equipment replacement, I'm happy to report, we actually have a capital item in the budget currently for the YMCA that will cover this item. So actually, this can be deleted from the list. But per the contract amendment that that the board approved in 2021, we own all the equipment in the YMCA, and we're responsible for maintaining and replacing it. And so there was previously a standalone item for equipment replacement in the budget that got pulled out, perhaps because that capital item was added. But in any case, I recently visited the Y with Katie Belangi before she left her position there. And there are a number of pieces of equipment that are at the end of their life. They're mechanical, they have cables, they've got weights, and they're no longer working the way they need to. They've been used heavily over the years, and they just need to be replaced. So that's something that will happen, but that will be included in that capital item. So that will actually, and because we have a capital improvement plan now, that $50,000 capital item that was in the budget will be taken out minus the $18,000. So that'll reduce the budget by $32,000. The next 3 line items also relate to the strategic plan. Staff training is a heavy element of that. We want to make sure that to achieve high performance among our staff, that they have access to training opportunities. The dollar amounts that I put in here are somewhat arbitrary. They could be raised, they could be lowered, but I'm trying to budget enough to enable us to accomplish the objectives of the strategic plan. Likewise, at a previous meeting, I heard that commissioners and department heads should also be included in that, and so there are line items for that. We are currently replacing the security system in the courthouse and security infrastructure at our other buildings. And the board recently approved the roughly at $270,000 to do that replacement. What this is budgeting for the replacement of this system in 2034. So setting aside a little bit of money each year so that when it comes time to replace that, per our other, equipment replacement budgets, we have that in highway, we've got that in IT, making sure that we are budgeting for that so that when the time comes to do the replacement, that we have the resources to do it. The last item on this list, there's a required Bureau of Criminal Apprehension software upgrade that we have to implement to remain compliant with BCA requirements. And so that's something that we don't really have a choice about. That has to be included. I want to mention also there were some items from the Highway Department that I neglected to include in this. I did ask Robbie Haas to send me his anticipated budget requests that represented an increase over last year. So a few things. He's going to be proposing that their equipment replacement budget be increased $60,000 over the previous year to follow the existing equipment replacement schedule, and that just relates to the increases in cost of equipment. Another factor that's really out of our control. They also want to propose an additional seasonal environmental worker. And this would be somebody who would be assisting the agricultural inspector with field work and outreach and education. That's $15,000. And then budgeting for a future maintenance worker 2 in tandem truck. I think the idea here is that we keep getting requests from the community about adding service, and in order to be responsive to that, if we are going to add that service, it's not going to be cheap to do. Robbie has mentioned a number of times that the total cost of doing that would be the cost of a new truck and a new maintenance worker 2, which would be on the order of $400,000. So this begins the process of saving for that.
Any questions for Administrator Yorkie, Commissioner?
Yes. Staff training, $1,500 per employee. What do you have in mind for any of this training, for anybody, for the commissioners or the department heads? Somebody coming in to do training, or is this online webinars?
I think we would be using a variety of different resources. Online training, of course, would be part of it. I'm also imagining that, attending in-person conferences somewhere in the state of Minnesota. It might be appropriate for certain staff to do out-of-state travel for national conferences and trainings, really a range of different things. And so this is really just a placeholder to cover those possibilities.
I know that one of the things that Commissioner Johnson mentioned is she appreciated the strategic planning training that was done, and that was facilitated by Northspan. And I've also had an opportunity to benefit from Northspan's work, and they're an excellent resource and might be able to help us with some of the training, not all. But it's nice to have someone local like that be able to come and visit with us. And thinking about training, we just recently had a commissioner training, and there is an opportunity for kind of a part 2 or a follow-up. We didn't get to our second portion, but I think that there's definitely a good way that we can move forward. I wanted to talk with commissioners about, do we want to look at our commissioner training, continuing that in September, or knowing that we will have an election and there may be new commissioners, waiting until potentially January for that training. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we've got 2 positions, and then, right, I think I agree. Putting it off till January would be a better use of money and
Okay.
time.
Thank you. I just
And
wanted.
also, I think it's important for the training in St. Paul,
Mhm.
unless they decide to do, a Zoom or a webinar or whatever, because they're increasing their training and their programming. If you look online for AMC, it's really great to sign up for that. But anyway, new commissioner training too is important.
Absolutely. Very critical. Thank you. Any other questions for Administrator Yorkie or comments?
Just a question. Way back when, we sat here with the special meeting commissioners and city to talk about reviewing the contracts that we have, and one was with the YMCA. This was the city and the county reviewing what we had in writing with the Y, just figuring out fairness. Do we have any idea when we'll get around to the Y?
We are doing the 3 agreements sequentially. We have approved the MOA regarding street maintenance.
Yeah.
We have started meeting on the law enforcement agreement, because
Yeah.
that's the other kind of significant one. And so that process is ongoing, and I expect that we'll be convening the city council and county board representatives to have that conversation starting soon. So we have not yet broached the question of the YMCA, and really that one is strictly a a dollar consideration, right? It's not really, it's just about the city's financial contribution to the Y.
Right, that's what,
Which they have indicated is kind of dependent on the resolution of these other two agreements because it impacts their bottom line. So,
well, I'm one of the commissioners for the Y, and I just haven't.
Madam Chair. So James, when you put this on for the next board meeting, you'll include the highway?
yes,
Yeah,
I will.
Okay. And anything else that would pop up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
what-
there are other things that have
Yeah.
been submitted, like the airport, but it was submitted recently, so it's not on here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I expect to have a more inclusive list at the
Okay,
next meeting.
thank you for this.
Sure.
great. Anything else? Any other updates that you have, Administrator York?
There are. So a few things related to the capital improvement plan. Commissioner White, I did get your voicemail yesterday, and I wanted to speak to where we are on that. First of all, in regard to roofing projects, we have gotten bids for the community center, Colville Town Hall, and the museum. Those bids have come in. I'm happy to report at the budgeted the budgets for those projects in the CIP. So the concern was, when we got the bids, they would be substantially higher than what was listed in the CIP. They're in line with what CRBPS forecasted, so that's a good thing. At a previous meeting, I don't recall if it was the last one before I was out of town, but we did have a discussion about the possibility of doing some work on the community center. There was a lot of interest in, since the board has decided to pause the development of a judicial center, and since we still have space needs, looking at the community center as a possible location for making some changes. Again, for the public's benefit, it is a building that was built in about 1992, 93. It was built largely with volunteer help. Again, a really great reflection of how this community works together to get things done. There are a number of aspects of the construction that are not optimal. And so there's work that needs to be done to either reinforce or renovate parts of it or do something completely different there. And so because the board has expressed an interest in looking at that building, and because we have reached out to BKV Group, which did the master planning for the judicial center, to assist us in that process. And in fact, they did, you may recall, they did provide a proposal for looking at the courthouse and ways that it could be renovated. We did not, when we were having that discussion, we had not yet kind of moved on to the idea that maybe we would do something bigger with the community center. And so that is still a pending issue because it relates to decision-making about the roof at the community center, right? We don't want to put on a 30-year roof if it's something that's likely to be, demolished or redone within a few years. And so that's something that I think we need to bring into clearer focus. And I think what I would suggest is that we move forward with the other two projects and pause a decision on the community center roof until we've had a chance to do a little more exploration about what the possibilities there are and what the cost would be involved. So the other thing about the Colville Town Hall, and I was talking with Ms. Thompson about that before the meeting, the chimney there is not in good shape. It needs to be tuck pointed, and it also probably needs like a flue insert to make it more serviceable. And that needs to be done before the re-roofing can be done, because obviously you don't want to be up there doing that kind of work on top of new shingles. So that is something that we have sought bids for. We've gotten some bids back already. One of them was really pretty high. And so we need to do some additional work to get additional bids there. But that is a project that we could move forward with in the nearer term, once we have additional bids on the chimney restoration.
Commissioner White.
So, two things. So probably Colville Town Hall's roof will get attention this year.
Oh, for sure.
Two, when you're talking about options with the community center, I would very much like to request that the entire board get to be part of that discussion, not, like, what do you find and what are the ramifications? Like, we do
Without a
this,
doubt.
then what is this? And
Sure.
the BKV group, if they have, we need to discuss all of that as a whole. So, that's all.
I completely agree with that. I mean, that is absolutely the board's purview to oversee and make decisions about that. And so I would expect we'll do a process similar to what we did with the courthouse master planning, that will have impacted departments participating in that master planning process. It'd be great, obviously, to have a commissioner. Commissioner White was involved in the master planning for the Judicial Center, and that was really helpful. And we need to get that process underway, because I do want to get a roof on the community center yet this year. I think it's essential. And we need additional information to understand the best approach to getting that done. So. Are there any other questions about that?
Yes.
Okay.
The roof on the community center, should the decision be made to not put a new roof on it, we will indeed, though, have someone come in to do a serious patch job to stop any water intrusion until a decision is made.
We have patched known leaks, so that has been taken care of.
Any other questions or comments? Any other updates?
So regarding the rest of the CIP, there are a number of other projects, many of which are in this building and in the community center. I guess at the last meeting, I heard the board say that there's still interest in doing the addition to the law enforcement center, right?
Correct.
And so the other CIP projects that are part of that building, we can start getting underway as part of that process. For the courthouse and the community center, I would suggest pausing until we have greater certainty about what we are doing with these two buildings, because they require a lot of help. And again, I don't want to make investments that we later have to undo because we changed our plan. So those are the big things. Still, again, having been out of town for a couple of weeks, still digging out of emails and trying to get my bearings. I should mention, too, we have started labor negotiations. Last week, we met with law enforcement labor services bargaining unit and made progress on negotiations on that contract. We've scheduled to meet with the CCEA, which is the Cook County Employees Association. Commissioner White, I'd like to touch base with you on that, because you are one of the board appointees to the negotiating team.
Okay.
So those are really the big things that are going on right now. Obviously, lots of little things always cropping up, but those are the big items.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate all those updates.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on at this point to commissioner updates. Commissioner White.
I didn't have a lot of commissioner requirements meetings last week. It was pretty odd, to say the least. But the Active Living Group, again, met, and as always, active. Sounds very good. There was a lot of talk about the Gitchigami Trail and where that's at. And it continues to move forward. The biggest thing to report is of anything different is the Council on Aging down at the Hub. They have a Narcotics Anonymous group that now meets down there, which I've been informed that it's a new thing, and we have it in Cook County, and that is they are busier than ever, and it's people coming for the bone builders, for Tai Chi, for chair yoga, for toenail clippings, for Narcotics Anonymous, and other, the place is used for public health uses that place for little meetings of some sort. So, very busy place. And the big thing is they got which doesn't really matter to anybody really, but the cooks and everybody. They have the hood fan fixed, so now it's not 125 degrees in the kitchen. It's actually a manageable thing. So that's it. I don't have anything else.
All right, thank you so much. Commissioner Storr.
Thank you. Well, last week, Attorney Hicken brought us all together on the Cannabis Regulation Committee, and just a few highlights from that. We need to set the number of licenses by August 24th. So we have 3 more meetings on July, August, which isn't a lot, to set the number for that. And we talked about conditional use in Cook County for a cannabis store. And interestingly, knowing that we have 25 businesses that sell hemp products, we have 15 licensed businesses that sell tobacco. So we're already in the know with products that people can buy. So that was, we talked about the legislative update. And there's constant, it seems like every time I look at the Tribune, there's constant updating, especially with some of the reservations now getting into the hemp, or into the cannabis, marijuana growing and being able to sell right there. And also 25 miles west of Duluth, there will be a cannabis marijuana growing, which will be then, some of it can be sold at Black Bear Casino, and it'll just keep growing and multiplying. So I think, for our needs here in Cook County, it's really important to have a handle on how many we're going to license here. So that was good. We'll meet again in July and monthly. Then yesterday at the Cook County Extension Committee meeting, we had an interesting presentation by Anna Stockstead, who was here in Cook County last fall and working with landowners and looking at the forestry that people own anywhere from, 10 acres to 25 to 50 acres. How to manage that and how to incorporate new plantings in regard to climate change and what's going to happen on our properties in the future. So she had a update on that. And then there is also 2 people that are doing a survey on rural health, a David Beard and a Kim Downer. And they've been going around to the different rural areas, northern Minnesota and Wisconsin, and taking a survey of what are some of the needs for burnout, what are some of the needs for people who have to travel a distance to work at the hospitals and clinics. So when they get all that put together, they'll come to Cook County because we were one of the counties that they have surveyed, and they'll do their presentation to the hospital board. So hopefully that will be, and I did ask that would be publicized in their agenda so that we could maybe take advantage of understanding what their results are. But that was it's sponsored by the University of Minnesota in Duluth, and they feel a need to really understand where workers are coming up with a lot of situations that that has been presented to them in the wider area of our northern states. And then Carrie Cavett did present to the board her packet that we received when we were down at the district meeting. And this one is for Stacy. I'll get this to her before next Wednesday or next Tuesday for our committee of the whole, which Carrie will be here and talk about some of the situations of the MOA for 25 through 27. And I did ask her to help us understand the fact that we had county extension in Cook County for 60 years. And now we have shifted gears to be more involved with the University of Minnesota, which is a new factor for us to consider. And Sarah's done a wonderful job with programming and bringing in new ideas. Farm Family of the Year was discussed for that family and how we're going to present it. Last year we did it at the fish picnic, and we felt it was mostly tourists there, so we want to have it more community and county organized. So we'll come up with a better plan on how to present that to the family. So that's a couple updates.
All right, thank you so much. Well, I have a number of things. The Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee met July 28th, and Auditor Powers did a great job of giving a little update about ClearGov. Anything you would like to share with this group? Just like a short synopsis of how ClearGov is going.
Oh. Our basic information is all entered into ClearGov now. We just have to get in and learn how to operate it and how we might want to design it for our use. So it wasn't ready for send out to the departments to make their initial entries, so we can update it. We'll actually upload their information into ClearGov, and then as they learn it through the summer and we do, then we can design how to present those budgets in a clear manner for both you as the board and for like our website. We'll have reports that I think the public will appreciate. So.
Yeah, that's one of
For
the
later.
things that I
Yeah.
was really excited about, that the fact that we're moving forward and the public will have access to budgeting
And-
information.
And just to clarify for folks who may not know, this is budgeting software that will enable us to create an online dashboard that residents can use to access information about the county budget. It's going to be a lot more transparent, it's going to be more accessible, and it's something that is part of our strategic plan. We're trying to make information more readily available to the public.
Then we had our AMC District 1 meeting, and already Commissioner Storley talked a little bit about University of Minnesota Extension, and they'll be coming to our Committee of the Whole next week. I did have an opportunity to meet with the board chair of Carleton County to talk about airport entitlements. And they were totally unaware that their airport manager had requested those entitlements. So it was a really good conversation for all of us to have, and something that we'll look at for future budgets. But I wanted to update the public that we did have that conversation. Related to Firewise, I was unable to attend because that did occur during our District 1 meeting. But I did send them an update of the different opportunities we've had to present to community members at town halls and at Cook County Higher Ed. And at Cook County Higher Ed, we made, as mentioned earlier, we would be doing a real nice video that is about an hour and a half in length, but community members can look at that at their leisure when it fits their schedule to find out a little bit about Firewise, to find out how to create a clean air room in their home, how to develop a go bag, all those different components. So that was nice that we could get that video completed. Had an opportunity to be at the ISD 166 safety class last week as school wound up, and we shared information about emergency management here in Cook County, and the kids have some homework to go home and educate their families about that over the summer. Attended our Soil and Water Conservation District meeting last week, and one of the things I wanted to announce to our community and to everyone here is that Becca Reese, who was in charge of the Rainy River Vermilion River One project, or one plan, has been snatched away by Bowser. She did such a good job with soil and water conservation, and they saw her in action creating that plan and presenting regionally and at the state. And so she has a new job, and so we are in search for someone to replace her for North St. Louis County.
And Bowser Beans.
Board of Water and Soil Resources. Thank you.
I thought that was the guy in Sha Na Na.
And so anyway, until the time that her replacement has been hired, Elena Hansel and her counterpart in Lake County will be helping us through those meetings. And our next meeting is, I believe, July 12th. And then we had our Gunflint Trail annual cleanup last week. Every mile of the Gunflint Trail was walked by one or two or a group of people, and it's the first time all the miles have been covered. And our highway department did a great job of coming along with 2 huge vehicles, which they filled with bags of trash, and it was very, very successful. And I want to thank Andrea Hofelt of Loon Lake Lodge and also Carl Madsen of Rockwood for putting that event together and getting so many volunteers involved. And lastly, tomorrow I'll be meeting out at the airport with Tia Clark, who is our ag inspector and also works with terrestrial invasives. And we have knapweed on the old airport runway. And so we'll be looking at that and looking at a biological way to take care of that, which involves no mowing and introducing weevils, little bugs. And so I will be reporting back next month at our next meeting about the little bugs and how we intend to improve the situation out at the old airport strip. So something new and different always.
Commissioner Sullivan, it begs the question, what's the consequence of introducing weevils?
They have been introduced already in Cook County and other
What eats
locations.
them?
I don't know. I'm going to learn tomorrow about them.
Okay.
I'm not a bug expert.
We could just introduce more dragonflies at this point.
I'll talk to Tia about that. I agree, that would be a great thing. All right. We have a lengthy list of meetings coming up throughout the rest of the month. And correspondence includes our lodging tax comparison and the Minnesota State Demographer. A reminder that the information from the demographer is an estimate. It won't be till the end of July. I did note that we kind of balanced out, that the city of Grand Marais increased a little bit. Our townships on the west end decreased slightly. So we're just about where we were last year. But we'll see what happens when we get the final report at the end of July. And then we have recognition of staff, a number of June anniversaries. Lillian Carlson with PHHS for 1 year. Melissa Wickwire, hard to believe she's been here 2 years already with PHHS. Andrew Beavers in Land Services currently, he's been here 3 years. And Attorney Monson, 3 years with us, and in the past as well, many others, I recall that. Tyler Johnson, Land Services and the Recycle Center, 3 years. Kelly Berg with the Auditor Treasurer's Office, 7 years. Scott Benolkin with our Highway Department, 16 years. And Dave Eckel in Maintenance, 46 years. Just incredible. And then we also have a couple of milestone anniversaries. Isabella Sheehan, who's been with PHHS for 5 years now, and Rachel Asp in our assessor's office, 10 years, so a full decade. So we thank all of those staff members and all our staff for their great service. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Anything further? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thanks and have a great day.